Hi, I'm Nathaniel, and today I want to tell you about the time when bullying the author actually worked. Now, everybody has this book series that they're just absolutely waiting for it to finally get finished, whether it's Name of the Wind, or Game of Thrones, or the sequel to Rhythmist, which Brandon Sanderson really should have finished writing before he released the first one with the cliffhanger ending. Now, when you really want a book sequel to come out, it's probably best not to bother the author because authors are humans too and they can get stressed out. And even someone as big as Patrick Rothfuss or George R. R. Martin, if you keep yelling at them, it's just going to make them feel sad and think they don't have it, and then they're not going to be able to write. I mean, authors should have a tough skin, especially if they're big, but I also get if someone gets into a cycle of not writing and they kind of get grumpy or burned out and then don't think they got it, how it could be a problem. But today I'm going to tell you I've I've bullied an author into publishing a book. So first, some background. The author is J.C.M. Byrne. He's the author of the Hybrid Helix series. I have not read that. Heard a lot of good things. But last year or so, he decided he was going to release a selection of magazines, I think is the best way to say it, where he would publish a episode of the serial he was working on and some other stuff. And that was back when my YouTube channel was just started. And I found this guy and I was like, more short stories, because my thing that last year was short stories and a serial. This looks really fun. And so I read them up. I followed him on X, and the moment the next issue was released, I would read The Grimdorf, and then I'd read the other stories, and there's lots of really good stories. I don't know if he still has those magazines up, but they were really good. So, unfortunately, though, not a ton of people saw it, because if they would, they would have all read it and loved it. And Mr. Byrne got kind of discouraged, and he stopped publishing them. And that made me really not happy because he ended it basically like 3 or 4 episodes before the first season ended, the equivalent of a season, and it was right where it was ramping up. I'll talk more about the story itself because this is also a review. He stopped. Got kind of burnt out. He was working on his Hybrid Helix series, and so I had to wait. And I waited and waited, and then I got impatient and started bothering him. I commented on his posts asking when he'd come out with it, and I would at him on X and ask him when he'd have it come out. And anytime he even mentioned the story, I'd ask him how it was going. I even had the audacity of hopping on in a live stream when where he was being interviewed by Bearded Book Beast. That guy's a great booktuber, 100 times better than me. Go follow him, 1,000,000,000%. He's great. But I even jumped on there and asked him and made him explain the whole thing to everyone on that live stream. And I bothered him and bothered him. I even said when I was thinking about starting for this, I said I was going to do daily updates on whether Grimdorf was out. And finally, I think it was last month, he released the rest of it. And for a while he had it on free. Now it isn't. It's on Amazon. And you should go buy it because it's really good. It's the basic premise of the Grimdorf is this dwarf wakes up in a dungeon with a water witch called Kayla, and shoot, I realized I have a story with the name of a character that is that name too. And I wrote it before reading the story. Anyway, I'll worry about that later. He wakes up with a water witch and a dog, and the dwarf does not remember anything except that he'd been stabbed in the face before. And he is magic, and he is in a lot of pain, but he can heal from anything. I think in the book, and later in the book, he gets his head cut off and he grows it back. He recovers from it. The title of this volume of Grimdorf is Grimdorf Cursed, and it's portrayed most of the time throughout the story that him and his healing powers is a curse because he has other problems. He's in pain. He can't touch stone, a lot of stuff. It's an interesting power and Lost Dichotomy. I don't really think it's a curse. We'll see what happens later on in the books when he writes a sequel, which he will. I'll get to that later. This story is kind of dark. It's definitely in the PG-13 rating. There's like combat and lots of combat and lots of jokes, some crude ones, but it's really funny. It's like Marvel. I'm not gonna compare it to Marvel. It's better than Marvel's humor, but it's just kind of more of that quipping where it doesn't take itself very seriously, and it's very funny. And so this dwarf, the Grim Dwarf, is the titular character. He has to he goes through a series of mini adventures. He kind of figures out more about himself, but it's not the biggest focus of it. It's more of having a rollicking good time and punching bad guys and stuff. It's in like a high fantasy secondary world that's kind of generic, but also kind of different. It's not like bog standard D&D. It's very interesting. The magic system is a kind of hard magic system. It's very it's kind of vague but very elegant and all very good. I especially really love the Grim Dwarf namely he's funny. He punches people instead of using weapons, and his healing powers is good. After it was released, some people were talking around calling it Cozy Grimdark, which actually kind of fits. I don't read Grimdark, but I think it's like the really dark fantasy. And like it does have some dark elements, but it's lightened with a lot of jokes and also the format, which the format's very interesting because it was designed in a serial. Instead of having the normal Freytag's pyramid of going whoop and then going straight down, it kind of just goes up, down, up, down, up, down with each like tiny arc increasing the tension and then ending. So it's not one of those books like once you get to the 2/3 you have to sit down and finish it because there's lots of tiny mini episodes and because it was serial it felt really good. Like you could read like 2 or 3 chapters for one arc and then you're like that's pretty good, that's a pretty good story about that's pretty good, and then you could wait a week to read the next one or maybe 2 weeks. All self-contained. It was really nice, and that I thought specifically that mechanically it was interesting because it did relieve a lot of the tension because that and the fact that the Grim Dwarf can regenerate from most damage. I mean, there's still stakes like the Water Witch can't get hurt. Grim Dwarf's dog Blink, he doesn't want him to get hurt. I think it's him. I recently finished it because it was just last month, and I finished reading it, but I didn't reread the entire thing. I'm waiting for it to come out in physical copy. He has the ebook on Amazon, but I want the physical copy. He said that's gonna have to wait until he gets the second volume out, which he says he's gonna do it eventually, judging by the interest. And so, please go read the book and leave a review and show that we're all very interested in it because it's dwarfs and dwarfs are cool and it's fantasy and it's funny and the dwarf punches elves, which is good. I think the one lady's he punches elves, which is good. They deserve to be punched. And so all in all, really good book, and please do it. Don't worry about him not making a sequel before you pick up the first one. It's not going to be like George R. Martin or anything. He will write a second one. Trust me on that. He will. I'll make sure of that. Bye.